just wanted to wave my hand, man, and say welcome to the new week. It's all real good over here in the cold gray lakes. Hey, Mr. Worldwide, honky knockout is in the clear.
Hey, me Shane, Gemini Garage, and since I've kind of been on a bit of an antenna kick here lately, I think I started getting antennas for that first antenna test back in like maybe November of last year, so all of this antenna stuff has definitely not been an overnight thing. So, and with that, a little story. I think I told you about how during this test there was one antenna that was kind of indefinitely back ordered, and another one that was back ordered, or excuse me, discontinued. And so I ended up buying this one here. This was the President Maryland, and again, I really like this antenna. It performed really well, you know, and there's not a lot here, so it's a great antenna. I mean, it works great. It's got a lot of whip there, but the whip's not huge thick, so you know, if you just need an antenna to kind of stick someplace and have a decent ground plane, some counterpoise coming off of that, it's a good little antenna. But what I wanted to talk about is I almost didn't buy this antenna. And the reason I almost didn't buy this antenna is because in one of the reviews I read, it said that the person that reviewed it said it was a great antenna, but that it had eventually gotten water in it and they'd had some problems with it. And excuse me. And so I thought to myself, well, I don't want to deal with that, because I kind of started looking at the design of it and how it was made, and I thought, yeah, you know, I could kind of see how maybe that would be a problem. And so, you know, but then as some time went on and I started looking at it, I thought, you know what, I'll give it a try. And the other thing too is I started looking at all these other antennas. And I mean, this thing here, it's got this top piece and kind of an O-ring in there that comes over there. And kind of an O-ring in here. When I say kind of an O-ring in here, the O-ring in here is almost too small. You should really get, you know, a fatter O-ring for this, and I'll get to that in a minute. But this thing here is plastic. You know, this tram over here, I mean, not complaining, they make great stuff, but this is plastic here too. I mean, pretty much all of these things, you know, are plastic. So I started thinking about it, and I started thinking, how much can you really expect these things to be weatherproofed, you know, without doing anything to them? You know, it just stands to reason that, you know, a light rain or something, sure. But I mean, if you got something like this that's going to be in your car in the winter all year long, you know, and then you may end up with snow piled up around it overnight and just kind of melting into it and turning into an ice cube around it, you really cannot expect the O-rings, the plastic, you really can't expect any of that to necessarily survive that. So if you're not in a situation where you can take your antenna off, or you plan on taking your antenna off, and the fact of the matter is, the weather's really crappy, you probably just won't unless you need to, right? Probably what you're going to need to do is do a little bit of weatherproofing. As I've said before, I'm looking at all these antennas, they all have the same, most of them, shouldn't say all of them, but most of them have, you know, a few similar areas that could probably use a little reinforcing as far as some weatherproofing goes. And also the other thing is most of them could also use to have maybe a light clear coat of spray paint put on them, because the stuff is plastic. So, you know, if you can put maybe a light coat of matte or gloss or whatever your preference is, light coat of spray paint on this stuff, that'll also kind of keep the sun from degrading the plastic. So that and a couple of other little tips and tricks. So again, like I said, I've been working so much with these antennas, it's really became kind of obvious that, you know, a lot of them could have some compromised problems during, you know, really bad weather. So I just thought that maybe I would do a video on weatherproofing them, because it's really something that you should probably do if it's going to be out in the weather for any length of time. So with that, I'm going to get a couple things together, and I'll be back. So stick with me. Okay, so like I said, what you want to do is probably use just some basic, this is some matte clear. You could use glossy or just really kind of whatever you want. You don't have to, you know, put a super heavy coat on it. You're just going to want to kind of just put a dusting on it. And then some kind of silicone. This is a black, you know, RTV silicone. This would work. You could use a clear type of silicone. You could use probably certain types of caulking, like a silicone caulking, probably any kind of caulking that's somewhat weatherproof, really whatever color you want, but you could use some clear silicone caulking, just kind of whatever. What you'd want to do is you want to take and grab a paper towel or a rag. You're walking off camera again. Knocking everything over on my bench. So what you want to do is put you some of this isopropyl alcohol on a rag or a paper towel. Alright. You're going to want to just kind of wipe it around here. Okay, you're just basically trying to get the fingerprints and everything off of it so the paint will stick. You could disassemble this, but like I said, that's really not necessary because we're not gonna hose the thing with a super heavy bunch of spray paint. We're just kind of gonna. All right, that should be good. We're gonna take our rubber boot off the bottom here, and I got some tape here. And I'm just gonna lay this thing on its side here. I could take the mast and stuff out, but I'm not gonna worry about doing that. I'm just gonna tape it up. Like that. And then we'll just take and put a little bit around the base like this here. That's good enough. And then I'm going to grab the coax here and run it outside. I'm going to grab a piece of cardboard from somewhere around here. Set it down on there. Okay, the sun is so bright I can't even see if this is in the viewfinder, so if it ain't, it ain't. Here's some of that clear spray paint, and we're just going to do a real light dusting on it. And that ought to do it. Okay, I'm basically doing the same thing to the President Maryland here. You could take these tuning rings off of here, but I'm not going to worry about doing that. I'm just going to put a light dusting on there. Alright, I'm going to go mask a little of this off. Okay, I'm back, and I think I'll talk a little bit more about some of these antennas and probably the best way to maybe weatherproof them a little bit. Again, we got the striker here, and we already just put a clear coat of this stuff on there. Again, you can use matte, glassy, semi-gloss, whatever you want. Just clean it off with some alcohol. This thing here, there's an O-ring in here, but that O-ring is sometimes kind of too thin and maybe not the highest quality, so I would put a little thicker, fatter O-ring in here and then put a little bit of silicone on the outside of here, and you're probably pretty good there. It's a good idea on all these whips to take and use some chrome cleaner, some metal polish of some kind, and run that up and down the whip really good. Keep the whip nice and clean. Again, all this stuff is to just kind of help weatherproof it a little bit, keep the sun from bleaching the plastic, keep stuff from sticking to the antenna. Every little bit helps. But for this one, clear spray paint here, replace the O-ring in there, put some silicone around here, polish the whip, probably pretty good. Now the whole thing does come apart. You do have a seam here and an O-ring in here, and I can't remember if there's an O-ring in the bottom of this or not. But you may want to, if you really wanted some overkill, you could, I guess, smear some silicone around these seams right there. The other thing on this antenna too that you want to look for is on this one here, since the load comes off, they did put an O-ring in here and a little bit of grease on there. I don't know if you can see that in there, but there is an O-ring right there and a little bit of grease. And the steps here to kind of help seal a little bit. So you want to keep your eye on that there. And otherwise for this antenna, like I said, that's pretty much it. If you want to know the full ins and outs of this, I got a video on the complete disassembly and reassembly of this thing. So there you go. Alright. Now, for an antenna, say like this Wilson here, the load on this one unscrews kind of like the striker here. Except they didn't put an O-ring or anything in here, or grease or anything. So, again, you want to take this thing apart and check it and, do whatever you feel is necessary. Put an O-ring in there, put some silicone on there if you're not going to be screwing it or unscrewing it off of there. Make sure, again, you're not going to cover up any weep holes or anything. Not even going to go off, try to not to go off on the quality control of Wilson because they've got some other problems other than just not putting the O-ring and stuff in there. This one shorted out on me, so I'm not going to get into that. But again, if you've got an antenna that's, a Wilson 5000 or 1000, you've got the O-ring and whatever's going on in the base there, so that's an area that you want to have sealed. Check that. This area here, this unscrews off of there. The load and everything is kind of glued in there, glued together, but this will unscrew off of there, and there's a stud that comes out of here, so you probably don't want water getting in there, so probably wouldn't hurt to put a little bit of silicone on there. So again, an antenna like this, clear coat of spray paint, some silicone around here, make sure this bottom under here's got its O-ring, and then polish the whip, and you're probably pretty good to go. Something like this tram antenna here, the load doesn't unscrew off of here, so you probably would just, clear coat of spray paint, polish the whip, put some silicone around here, and probably call it a day. You could put some around here because there is a seam here, but by the time you get enough water that's going to back up in there, you're probably going to have some other problems. So again, that's just kind of what I would do with these antennas. You got something like this one here. This one doesn't really have any seams on it here, so maybe just a little bit of silicone right there and you're probably good to go. Also worth mentioning, coax seal. Most of your coax on these antennas you think are going to be routed inside, but if this were to be on the outside or exposed to the weather, there's also this coax seal that you want to put around this and the connector that you put it on. But I'll get into that maybe at the very end of this video, and it's definitely another video and something that's more geared towards base station antennas. Which brings me to some of these larger antennas here. And this one here, yeah, we went ahead and painted this thing. This one here, I'd put a little bit of silicone around here, and then maybe just a little bit where this metal and this plastic here meet, and polish the whip and call it a day with this one here. So, as for these larger ones here, you really don't have to do much to weatherproof these because there's just really not a lot of plastic or inside casings or any of that. But what's going to happen with these is they're going to ice up. There's no way you're going to get snow like 2 feet up, touching and contacting here, and then melting all over, your ground part here, and then to the rest of the car. That's, so which brings another conversation up, and that is you can't just necessarily throw an antenna on the car and use it under all circumstances. If you do have a lot of snow or ice, your antenna can ice up and cause damage to your radio if you're not paying attention to what you're doing. So there is some maintenance, some weatherproofing, and some how-tos when it comes to using an antenna on a car in really bad weather. So anyways, with that, hope that helps. I'm going to kind of clean up my bench here, and then I'm going to come back and kind of give a real quick tutorial on the whole sealing up of the coax, and then that'll be it. So stick with me. So basically, This style of antenna is called a trucker style antenna because it's got the 3/8 24 thread. It's made to screw into something like this that would be bolted to a mirror, you know, like on a semi or maybe an RV. Another example of a trucker style, technically, would be this antenna here, the Gold Rod 45. That I just did a review on this one here. But you can see here, the end on this is the same type of deal here, where you've got that 3/8 24 thread there. And by the way, something like this, the weatherproofing, or what I would do with something like this is, since it's pretty much all just metal and not a lot of plastic on this either, I would just clean this all really good with alcohol and put some kind of maybe metal polish on there, or you could also put a really light coat of clear spray paint on it too. You're going to want to pick one because you don't want to try and put a clear coat of spray paint on it after you put some metal polish on it. But yeah, either one of those would work pretty good for this, you know, because you don't have a lot of plastic on here. So. But again, there you go. Just kind of take a look at whatever antenna you got and see what it looks like would be, you know, the best course of action. Again, you don't want to cover up any place that water's supposed to be draining or weeping out of. You don't want to plug up any drain holes or weep holes. But most of these antennas don't really have any of that. It's pretty obvious where the water's going to get in. So, you know, if you just take your time and look it over, you'll be fine. Again, you're using something like this, and you've got an external connection for your coax, you know, on there. You're going to want to get some this Temflex or coax seal, which is something that, you know, after you've got your coax on here, you stretch this around the fitting like that, and it just kind of melts into the threads and around here to keep water from getting in there, because water will get in there. And that's, like I said before, the misconception is you can just throw an antenna on a car or throw a base station antenna up there and just screw the coax on there and go. But there's some weatherproofing you have to do, and that would include to your coax too. Although that's really a whole entire separate video. But I did just want to kind of show you what I was talking about and mention it here, since a couple of these antennas are a trucker style antenna, and you might run into having to put the coax on there. So if you do have to screw your coax on externally for something like this, there is some tape or some seal you're supposed to put around there. And if it's an emergency situation, you can't find anything to put around there, tighten this on there, and then maybe put a little bit of grease around there until you can get you some coax seal. So anyways, with that, thanks for watching. Hope that helped, and may your antenna live a long and healthy life. So thanks for watching. H.A.M, Gemini Garage.